Let's talk about South Africa briefly. I think they're probably the most settled squad and a bit easier to talk about.
Yeah, South Africa at the moment seem really quite set on their 23. They don't make, a heap of changes other than that second test against Wales, which, was always just prescribed because they wanted to make sure that they could see, how the other 20 players in their squad went. To me, their only issues at the moment are finalising a backup in the halves. Pollard's the general, but, Elton Jantjies was shocking that first test. They don't have another fly half sort of in the squad ready to play unless they want to shift Willemse or LaRue, who really don't play a lot of minutes there. And then scrum half, they've had injuries to De Klerk and Reinach, and they just need to try and sort out who's going to be that backup. I think Jaden Hendricks has done an awesome job so far. He's got a really solid kicking game. Just how they sort of balance that out, because Herschel Jantjies' form's sort of gone out the window after a really awesome 2019. And their issue, I guess, for the tours against Australia, which is somewhat beneficial for us, is their right wing. Like every option they've put there has just become injured. So between Colby and Kosi, Creel and Arenza, they've all been either injured or suspended. So what they do there to try and fill that void is really interesting. We saw Lukanya Am do a great job there. But I think a lot of the talk at the moment is potentially shifting Mapimpi so that they can bring in a genuine left winger as well, like a Fassi, or, they could even look to someone like Hendricks or Sinatla who play wing locally. But then Kayla Moody's someone that's been called into the squad as a genuine right wing. Hasn't been in the squad before, hasn't been capped before. Could be an option between him or Warwick Gallant to fill in on the right wing. So that could be beneficial to us that they don't have, their first four options in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only worry is that Jesse Creel's only a concussion, right? So he should be back pretty quickly. I don't know how long since he's actually had a concussion. I don't remember hearing anything about a previous history of it. So that means he could turn it around in 6 or 7 days pretty easily. So I think he should be, I would expect a decent chance to play against the Wallabies. But look, for me, I think they've got an established way of how they're playing now ever since Erasmus took over. And I don't think anything's changing with that game plan. I think they've got a forward pack that just breathes depth at the moment, and they have this ability to kind of drop players in to play the exact same role. I thought that they obviously have a very simplistic game plan, which serves them very well for bringing new players in. And Aranze, is it? Aranze, the right winger? Is that how you say his name?
I've been guessing.
Just butchering it there, sorry. But look, I thought he was phenomenal coming in on a right wing as a player that really is, relatively speaking, a rookie. He looked like an established player, So I think the big thing for me is they keep things simple, and it makes it so easy for their players to stick to their systems. Their defensive pattern looks so good because they're just told, just go with Lukanya Am as a winger. Just whatever he does, just press forward if he presses forward, and don't if he doesn't. And then he just makes the right decision every single time because he's the world's best player. Sliding that in there. But look, I think that's a really strong point for them. But for me, it's just the plan B. Everyone talks about the fact that they don't actually blast any team off the park. And I think that's a real issue for them because even when they're dominant, that one or two bounces of the ball go the wrong way and they lose the game. So, they were incredibly dominant against New Zealand, the most I've ever seen them against really one of the top sides in the world, and they won by 16 points. On another day, New Zealand still could have etched out a win there, despite the fact that they were just not in the game to start with. And I think we saw that in the next test following up. South Africa 10% off the pace and they got knocked off. So for me, they need to find a way to score more points than what they are. Their rolling maul, I would think, should be a way that they can score try after try after try, but it's not quite there consistently yet. And they need to work out how to actually leverage the attack that they have in their backline because there are so many good players. I'll be surprised. I hear what you're saying about the left wing option and using that instead because you've got someone like Farsi in reserves. But it would really surprise me to see Mapimpi on the right wing. I don't think his game suits that role really at all. He's obviously a good chaser of the high ball, but other than that, I don't think he serves the same kind of role as what those other wingers did on that right wing. So I think that would be a real issue for them if they did and probably expose a bit of a hole there. The big worry for me is I just think that their game suited perfectly to Australia's weaknesses at the moment with their ability to bash forward through the ruck, put up a dead accurate up and under for our back three, and then they scrum the house down and they scrum for penalties. So that'll be the real litmus test for our scrum. And geez, it's been a while since we've been seeing our scrum going back on skates, but I'm a bit worried.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a massive concern. It does, even harbour even more fear that that team on the weekend they could still add they could still add Bongi Manambi. They could still add Archie Snyman to that type five. Like Vermeulen's only just coming back to fitness. Peter Septor-Toy's only just coming back to fitness. Then they're two world class players, and we still haven't really seen much of Evan Roos. We still haven't seen much of Elric Lowe. Like they've got a lot of players that can really beef up that type five and add a lot of flair when needed. So for me, they're a scary team to come up against. I think you're right. They don't score a lot of points and they don't put teams away as they should. And it's crazy that the two margins between the Springboks win and New Zealand win were pretty similar margins of victory. But the first game, Springboks were so dominant and, won by a similar margin to a New Zealand team that was a little bit better than South Africa. So it is crazy to see what they could do if they're both really just going hammer and tongs.
Yeah, and I think that New Zealand played it a lot better with Richie Moe to try and get around that all-encompassing kind of rush defense out wide to try and get the ball across. There was a couple little highlights of Richie Moe's little chip kick across field, David Avili doing the same. Like, you can put the ball in behind them, and I don't think they have a really good tactic to defend that very well. So it's obviously a high risk, but when you think about, you're probably comparing that as an option to the up and under. I actually think it's a really, really good play in that kind of middle portion of the field. So I think teams will start doing that more and more against them because it's just the only way you can break that defense down. And then, unless you got Artie Sevilla on the wing, then it doesn't matter how you get in the ball. That's the only other trump card that New Zealand have. But yeah, look, very, very good side. I think probably and I know that South Africans won't want to hear this, but I think probably a bit overrated. At the moment, they're just so good at what they do, but I'm not sure that they're probably positioned well in the world rankings, to be honest, for a team that is the World Cup champs. I think it's about where they are. They're a really good side, but they just need another string to their bow and a way to put more points on teams to really capitalise and make themselves a genuine top team in the world, or the genuine top team in the world.